While the season feels like a disappointment, consider this. We enter into October, and Miami has yet to lose a game in the ACC. All the ACC games are on the table, ready to be played. The opener is Thursday night against Virginia at home. Keep all this in mind as well. North Carolina's already lost 2 games in the conference, as has Thursday night's opponent, the Virginia Cavaliers, already 0-2 in the conference. So much to play for as we embark on October, the second month of the 2021 college football season. Miami with a Thursday night date against Virginia. And of course, on Wednesday night, right here, Cam Underwood State of the U to break down Miami football. Cam, how are we doing tonight?
Good. Sorry about that. I was trying to silence my phone, and unfortunately, it didn't want to listen to me at that moment during your intro. I do apologize about that, but no, I feel good. Obviously, getting a win last weekend feels good. I know that it was against the Sisters of the Poor and everything. Not a real competitive team at the level of the Miami Hurricanes or anything. But yeah, getting a win feels good. So I feel good about it. And we're moving forward on to Virginia.
Folks, leave those comments, questions, debate topics in the live chat. We will get to them as we preview the game against the Cavaliers and, of course, talk all things Miami from a team and program standpoint. I think it's going to be an interesting game. Miami's a 4 to 5 point favorite. Really, Virginia's relied on one thing. 6. They're going to start swaying me to, if they can bump that up a point, I might be really swayed. But basically, they're playing a very one-dimensional Virginia team but they're basically playing a passing attack is what they're playing. They're playing a poor man's version of what Florida was last year. Of course, Florida was able to parlay that into a top 10 team in the country because they were so good. But Virginia can really sling it around the field. But defense, awful. Running game, non-existent. Basically, the quarterback does everything. He's basically the leading rusher practically, and he's throwing for the legs of 360 yards and a half against North Carolina. 59 pass attempts the last outing against Wake Forest. So it's pretty much Brennan Armstrong and a couple capable receivers, Billy Kemp, Devont, I'm going to screw some names up. Hicks is the other player. Jelani Woods is their big tight end at 6'7". They're playmakers. And basically, Miami's playing a passing attack on Thursday night, and that's what they need to at least slow down to win this game.
Yeah, Brendan Armstrong's thrown for 400 yards in the last 3 games that they've played. He's the first quarterback to throw for 400 yards in multiple consecutive losses in a while. I saw the stat come down the timeline this weekend when that happened. But yeah, he's their shifty left-handed quarterback who, he can run a little bit. So, if you play just, cover 0 or just, cover 1 man across the board, and you're going to have safeties at 20 yards and everybody underneath is going to turn their backs. If he's able to step away from some pressure, then he's going to get loose. So, and that's to the point of Mark saying, he's pretty much the leading rusher, and that's how that's going to happen. You have a couple maybe design plays or RPO kind of plays where it's like I could run or I could throw and he's going to get some yardage, but scrambling, he's definitely not a statue in that kind of a way, but he has been very successful throwing the ball. The 6'7" tight end is good. He got banged up last week. He's 6'7", and you don't want to give targeting, so somebody went, through his legs. Unfortunately, that sometimes going to be through your knees. That's just what it's going to be. So, we'll see if he's at 100%. I know that I think one or two of their defensive linemen at Virginia got injured last weekend. One of them did not return to the game. One of them did. So I'm not sure. And they were already missing a guy, I think, the defensive end for them for the year. So that's something to look forward to, or look out for, I should say. But regardless of that, the main idea here is Virginia throwing the ball vertically down the field has been a problem for opposing defenses. So you need to find out a way to do that, or to slow that down a little bit. Conversely, their offense or their defense has been terrible, except for a couple drives where Wake Forest was really on Operation Shutdown at the end of their game. So that was punt at the end of the game when they're just trying to drain clock. But on drives where the other team is trying actively maybe to score, but not just run out the clock. The last 16 drives ahead of those three for Virginia's defense, and this is a tweet from David Hale, and I'm going to read it directly. It went like this for 16 drives before Wake Forest decided to go Operation Shutdown. Touchdown, 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 field goal, interception for Virginia, field goal, touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown, touchdown. So you get one stop in 16 drives where the opposing team did not score until Wake Forest decided to go to the slow down offense, eat up clock, punt the ball, because they're not going to do anything because Wake Forest's defense, and I tweeted, I said, it's a shame that I wish our defense was that kind of physical because they were getting after Brendan Armstrong with the 3-man rush and they were getting home, But that also showcases, look, for what ails Miami, i.e. scoring points against an FBS level team, this is a team who stopped any opponent, and 16 drives is going to go 2.5 games. You know what I mean? Like, that's not just, because in a given game, you're going to get between 7 and 10 or like 8 and 11 drives of possessions on offense. So you're going 2 games probably, because that went into the Wake Forest game, 2.5 games where the offense had one singular drive that did not yield points. Bro, for Miami, you got to put points on the board now. You have to take advantage of that. So there are things that Virginia will do that will be challenging. There are opportunities to be had for sure for Miami on the other side of things. And I'm really looking forward to that. But, this has always been a game that will zig where all prognosticators think it's going to zag. If you don't recall, Al Golden single-handedly kept Mike London employed for multiple years by losing to some of the worst Virginia teams that we've seen. Okay? If you look back at the last few years, they've been, 16-14, 19-17, 19-16 Miami wins over the last 2 years. So total scores under 35, and the over-under is 62 or 62.5 right now. Like, it's been, in the last couple of years, you've been lucky to get halfway to what the over-under is set at. So, it's going to be a challenge. And we'll see if Miami can rise to the occasion. But, if you're really trying to make a step forward and contend for the ACC Coastal, and, the coach has been saying, Manny Diaz, that's our coach's name. If he's been saying, hey, all the goals that we have in front that we had before the year are still in front of us, which I think is a little bit disingenuous because you should have been pushing for 11 wins this year anyway, but whatever. But if you're pushing for a 10-win season, that is still potentially possible if you run the table the rest of this season in the regular season. If you're looking for an ACC Coastal Division championship, that is potentially possible because Miami has not played a division game or a conference game. But if you're going to address or approach those goals, you got to win tomorrow night. And that win tomorrow night would pretty much put Virginia out of contention because they're already 0-2 in the league. If you start 0-3 in conference, you're probably not going to factor into anybody's race. Now, if they get this one and they're 1-2, now you're trying to go towards that everybody in the Coastal being 4-4, and you flip a coin and you go to the 37th tiebreaker. But, Virginia does do some things very well, but Virginia also does some things very poorly. And it is my express hope that Miami takes advantage of that situation and comes out with a victory. And again, whether that can be by a lot or a little, as long as you win. And because I've seen people tweeting me about it, take this show right here as your, I'm not going to say the name of that brand, but as your high energy moment, because that will not be me on the field doing any other promotional kind of things like I did a couple of years ago. So enjoy it now.
This division is shaping up, and I state this with very few games being played, but it's more about just the way the teams are playing outside of conference. But there have been some very meaningful integral games to the division race, i.e. Georgia Tech beating North Carolina last week by 3 scores, where this is broken down from where it looked like a North Carolina-Miami showdown for the division championship to who knows what kind of free-for-all this could be. It could be a 3-way tie at 5-3 for first place in the division if one of those 2 more talented teams, i.e. Miami and North Carolina, don't get their acts together and pull away from the pack. But the way it's being played right now, both divisions look like they could just be complete free-for-alls.
Yeah.
Here's the scoring summary I came up with. It's very similar to what you just did. I went through the Wake Forest game until they took their foot off the gas. The North Carolina game, North Carolina had 11 drives, excluding again kneel down at the end of the game, kneel down at the end of the half. 11 drives, 8 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and a pick.
8 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and a pick.
Wake
in
Forest
11 drives of offense.
Wake Forest, the first 7 drives of the game before it was, they had a 20-point lead, 4 touchdowns, 3 field goals.
Again, points every single time on the field.
So in 18 drives, 17 scores, 12 touchdowns, 5 field goals in 18 drives. Wow, that's bad.
I mean, what else do you want me to say? Like, it's demonstrated. You can go look up the film. Like, that's pretty atrocious. That's incredibly porous for a defense. I mean, I would call them Swiss cheese, but that's disrespectful to that delectable, culinary item. So look, points are there to be had, and we've seen it from other teams. You got to go score.
I thought Bronco Mendenhall was a defensive guy. I thought that was his calling card.
So too as well, sometimes the thing that you do best is the thing that you ignore. And for whatever reason, maybe it's scheme, maybe it's injuries, maybe this is just a gap year for their cycle of recruiting and development or whatever it is. But yeah, sometimes these things happen.
I heard a partial explanation for Brennan Armstrong because I watched the first half of the Wake Forest Virginia game until it ceased to be a game. And he was throwing lasers all over the place. And I tweeted at one point, I said, this is the best quarterback in college football that nobody's talking about. And I just didn't base it on that. I'd seen him before, and I saw part of the North Carolina game as well. Mm-hmm. And they explained during last week's game that we didn't see this Brennan Armstrong necessarily last year because of all the COVID protocol and the shortening of the season and no off season, that basically this was his off season to develop into being the player that he is. And this is why he's just taken off, is that he's finally gotten the coaching and the tutelage and the reps to become this kind of player. So basically, I find this kind of fascinating that their leading rusher from the running back position is 91 yards, not in a game, 91. Wayne Talapapa, if you watch ACC football, you've seen that name. He's been in the program for 5 years.
And he's not playing anymore because he did a knee, so he's done for the season.
Oh, okay.
So the next actual leading rushing running back is somebody else, because they were talking in the Wake Forest game later when they had to filibuster a little bit about Talapapa and why he's on the sideline and everything, because he's injured and no longer a part of the attack.
So they weren't even getting rushing yards from the running back position. They were getting all of 20 yards per game from the running back position. So they are really just riding on his arm, and that's it.
But then we've seen things like this before. I mean, maybe not to this extreme, but I mean, we've all seen a Mike Leach coached offense, swing passes and slip screens and, short routes and meshes and, different kind of things that are ostensibly extensions of the run game. Excuse me for that. But you can do things throwing the ball that approximate what you can get from running the ball. And, hey, because if you can't run it, then you need to throw it. And that's the thing that we saw with Miami versus Michigan State, for an example, if you're wondering about that, for, using our program as an example. But, like I said, look at a Mike Leach coach team. Things have happened before. So, that's really what they're looking at. And, it helps them to have the ball in Brennan Armstrong's hand every single play. So, yeah.
Falconer X, thank you so much for the super sticker. We always appreciate your contribution and for you being here. These graphics defaulted to something else. I don't know if I like them. I like them for the banners with our names and the show name, but I don't like them for the truncated short presentation on these comments. All right, let me catch up with the rest of these super chats. There we got Falconer X coming back in here. Had a long day, started at 4 a.m. I'm nervous about the Virginia game. Cam, please soothe my nerves with your velvety smooth voice and tell me why Miami will win.
Miami will win because they will find a way to stop Virginia's offense. There might be yards to be had, but they will find a way to bow up in the defensive red zone. Also taking advantage of a very, very not good Virginia defense. One that, again, as we've detailed, gave up 17 scores and 18 drives. Now, that was between touchdowns and field goals, and Miami's going to find a way to increase their red zone offense so that they get into the end zone. Also, by playing more of the young players who are talented and hungry. And with all due respect, have not had the dog in them trained out by the Miami program, because we've seen some of that. Guys who come in with high acclaim and then they just play average, and whether that's training or just their innate ability, whatever it is, we don't like it. But we have young guys who are incredibly talented. They're going to play some major snaps this weekend, and everything. We'll be as healthy as we can going into that game and take advantage of those things. And also, we're going to make a play on special teams that's going to flip something. Hopefully, it'll be a return. Maybe it'll be a big hit on coverage. Maybe it'll be a couple field goals from the next kicker in the Borgales kicking dynasty. Shout out to Andy's mustache on Twitter. So those are the reasons, the things that are going to happen. It might be a closer game than we might want, because, again, these teams play close games for many, many years. This is going back more than a decade, 15 years. And not all close games are low-scoring games between Miami and Virginia. But even in the Mike London era, when we kept that man employed for many, many years, single-handedly, those games were close, although they were shootouts. So it might be a little closer, but, I think that Miami is going to have some stick-to-itiveness. I think that some of the older voices in the room, older players in the room, are going to take a backseat to some of the younger players who are maybe a little bit more full of energy and vivacity, and they will lead vocally towards Miami having a win on Thursday night. And I hope that works for you.
I got to think, not that you asked for my opinion, Falcon or X, nor my velvety smooth voice, because I don't own one of those, that considering the statistics we just read off, that's a complete indictment against this Virginia defense, that really North Carolina, of course, has a future NFL quarterback, but besides that, their offensive personnel, very, very similar in talent level, skill level to Miami. Wake Forest, not in the league of Miami from his skill and talent level. Very good offense, though, and a very good quarterback in Sam Hartman. If those two offenses could put down the kind of production that they just did, where North Carolina scored 59 points and Wake Forest put up 37 and took off the gas for the last 5 or 6 drives, so they had 37 through 3 quarters, that Miami it's going to be an indictment against the Miami offense if they can't put up in the high 30s at least.
Yeah.
And then Virginia, yes, as Cam just outlined, tremendous quarterback, 3 really good receivers / tight end. They'll put up some yardage and points, but if this game isn't in the 38-21, 38-24 range, that's probably where it should be. When you know a team, this is all they can do, makes your scheming on defense much easier. Mohammed, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Hey, Mark and Cam, been a while. This team reminds me very much of the team that lost to FIU. Tell me I'm wrong. Go Canes. # fill the rock.
I don't see that. Yeah, I mean, we lost to Michigan State, but they're currently undefeated. We lost to Alabama because most teams are going to. They're currently undefeated. We beat Appalachian State for their only loss of the year, so they're a couple plays away from being undefeated. That still would have been a bad loss, but that's the quality of team. They're probably one of the better, mid-major teams. They're one of the better group of 5 teams. You can make the argument, a clear argument, that they're the best group of 5 team and that they're above some Power 5 programs in terms of their proficiency. I think you can easily make that. Huh? Okay.
Cincinnati.
Well, second. Okay. All right. Okay. In the conversation, but I'll
get your point.
I completely forgot about them this year, but okay, that's fine. But outside of Cincinnati, there's probably nobody else that you're going to come up with. I mean, maybe you want to say BYU, but I would probably even take App State this year against BYU. You know what I mean? But I don't see that. I don't see losing to FIU from this team. I could be wrong, clearly, but I don't see that per se. Why doesn't this team seem interested to play? Another super chat from Mohammed. Thank you so much. attitude reflect leadership, Captain. You know, like sometimes you gotta be quiet with your confidence, and sometimes you gotta be fire and brimstone. You know, I've coached before. Like, I was a teacher for many years, and every time that we hit the stage with my choir, that was a show. The same thing, like you're talking about, you know, with the football game, that's a performance. That's us against the standard, not against anybody else, against our standard for excellence. And sorry, not even excellence, superiority, because the rating scale in music is superior, excellent, good, fair, poor. So excellence is not good enough. Perfection and nothing less. And so sometimes I would have to scream at my group, get them hyped, because we're doing these things and we're doing these loud songs and I gotta be like that. And y'all aren't paying attention. You gotta wake up. Other times, like one time, and I love, this is one of my favorite speeches I ever made before states, being held at the American Heritage School. There was another school that did the same spiritual that my choir was doing that year. A school from a mainly Caucasian area with a black kid doing the solo, but it didn't have the real spirit that I think it needed to have. And my whole choir, they announced it, and I'm standing in the back, and they turn around, they look at me, and I just go, look to the front. And they did it, and the notes were right and everything, and the articulations, and it was very square. It was sing unto the Lord a new song, which is nobody's spiritual. And so we went into the practice room, and we're warming up, and I didn't even give a long speech. I literally said, if you have ever watched Steph Curry, you know those times when he stunts on you and he shoots it and he turns to the bench and he's shimmying, or when he shoots it and he's running back down the court because he knows it's good? We can either ask them how it's supposed to be done or show them the way that it goes. And like Steph Curry, we're going to put it up and we're going to walk off stage because we know that's how good it is. Right? And that's it. And they were, I mean, every note, boom. I mean, it was an incredible performance. But I had them ready, and I knew the pulse of my group before they hit that time to perform. Okay, so that was the anecdote. Here's how it comes back to the Miami Hurricanes. I'm not sure that Manny Diaz knows how to prepare his team to to play in a game. I know, because we've seen that Manny Diaz knows, and the coaching staff know at halftime how to adjust to what's going on to right the ship and change things going forward. But I'm not sure that he has that dog in him. That, again, what I did when I was leading my teams and my choirs, what you've seen Rush Probst do, if you watched Year of the Bull, that Miami Northwestern documentary with all those coaches, Billy Roll and Ice Harris, you know, there are people who have their teams ready regardless. And it might just be for that first script of the game, but they come out and they are ready to go. I'm not sure that he has it in him. I think that he wants to be, like his father, a little too political. And sometimes you got to choose a point and you're going to stand on that point. And y'all are going to come with me. And if I got to scream at y'all and I got to curse at y'all a little bit to get out of you what I need out of you right now, not later, not after halftime, when I'm going to come in here and yell and scream and peel paint off the walls. But now, first play, kickoff, go knock somebody out, just like they did in the, what's that game? The
Cotton Bowl.
The
Cotton Bowl? The 1990 Cotton Bowl?
91. When he said, I'm going to go down there and knock somebody out. I need that energy right now. I'm not sure that Manny Diaz has that. And for me, I think that the even keel of politics and being a politician, I think that robs some of the enthusiasm from the players. And we've seen that negatively impact their performance early in games. That's me. That's what I've seen. And that's why I think they're not ready to play, because I think that sometimes you got to be a little bit more hyped than he wants to be, because everything's always even and we're a flat organization and we're through, hell and high water, or good times or bad, we're going to be even keel. Sometimes you don't got to be even keel. Sometimes you got to get hype. And I don't know that he has that in him. And to me, that's the thing that I see that is a negative impact to the team seeming interested or being prepared at the beginning of games.
That reminds me of an evaluation I've long since had about Tom Landry, great coach for the Dallas Cowboys. I could make a strong argument, but this is not an NFL show, that he is the greatest coach in NFL history. I know that that's not typically the place that he's given. He's given more of a top 5 to 10 place. But the one knock I will, and I don't know this to be true, but it was reminded me of something that hit me at one point in just observing his career and his teams, that he was very stoic and robotic and precisioned and technical, and his teams were to a T, and that enabled them to go to the playoffs 20 consecutive years, have 20 consecutive winning seasons, and always be in NFC championship games and battling for Super Bowls. But maybe they needed that push because they lost a lot of big games where they needed not to treat the Super Bowl like it was week 4.
Right. Exactly. Like there are big moments, and we need you to step up to the big moment. And being even keeled, I think through the course of the game, you're going to need to have that. But yeah, if I make a big play or I score a touchdown, like I'm going to let that out. I'm going to celebrate that. And hey, if I make a mistake, in my real life, I hate making mistakes. Like, I mean, in anything, I hate making mistakes. Me, myself, personally, I'm my own worst enemy about that. I will watch these things back and be like, oh, I messed up this word, or I did whatever. I hate making mistakes. And I'm going to beat myself up about it, but only for a second, and then we're going to keep going. And that's the ebb and flow. And I get you want to be more, but like, yeah, every game is not the same. And like this week's game was not the same as the Alabama game. I'm sorry. And clearly we saw it did not come out at all ready to go. At all. And yeah, I think that the politician in him, he can lose some of that sometimes. I think that serves a purpose, but it cannot be the entire, to me, it cannot be the entirety, because it's not, you have to have some kind of range, and I know that he's done some things like, the recruiting event, at the wharf with the yacht, and then going and having a coaching clinic the same time that Florida State was having a recruiting event, and stealing all the coaches over there because he's like, yo, come hang out and have some beers. And that was awesome, and things like that. But like, give me that energy on the game day. You know what I mean? Like, are you talking about, this fake momentum that other teams have on the recruiting trail, which is directly to the fact that Florida State had gotten commitments from 4 3-stars in the previous week when he made that comment. So you got a little jerk in you. You know what I mean? You got some edge to you. But like, let that out a little bit more. You want to be so buttoned up, like use that emotion and turn it into something positive. You can't just, it just more of that in, moderation, but like more than we're seeing, I think could be a benefit to the program. Because yeah, it's just, again, like you're talking about with Tom Landry, too robotic, too buttoned up for who we are and should be.
And I make that statement with the full disclosure that my son's name is Landry, so I love Tom Landry.
I mean,
so but I'm just looking into some of what I consider a flaw. So anyway, and what is also odd about the Manny Diaz approach is that not only may it not be effective all the time, but it doesn't seem like it's the identity of the program. If he was coaching like this at a number of places, Stanford, Kansas State, on a higher level, Michigan, Notre Dame, that would seem to be more in sync with who they are versus Miami.
Absolutely. But again, you show little instances of, being Miami. And I'm like, obviously he's, the son of Cuban immigrants and things like that, grew up in Miami. So I'm not going to say that the man doesn't have any connection here, but like, it could be more. It could be more.
Hey, Brandon, good to see you, man. Thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Love this show. Cam, do you think this Virginia game is Manny's most pressured game as the head coach in his career, given the mediocrity of the ACC, not winning this conference at its worst in the last decade? Bad.
The game with the most gravitas in his tenure was last year's North Carolina game, and we saw what happened. No, we weren't going to win the ACC. No, we weren't going to go to the championship game. because that was already predetermined, which is its own other story. But you have a Rose Bowl or you have an Orange Bowl berth on the line for the winner of that game. Clearly, that was who was going to go. Had been stated, had been put out, like the Clemson and Notre Dame are going to the ACC championship game, and then whatever. And then you come out and get your doors blown off by Carolina, and they run for 973 yards and 22 touchdowns or whatever it was. So I won't say that this is the most pressure or spotlight or whatever on a game, but it's up there. And the thing about it is, due to that monumental loss in that feature game against North Carolina last year, you had a closer loss against Clemson, but still wasn't close during the regular season last year as well. This game now puts up the pressure because the volume's being turned up on Manny Diaz and the temperature on that seat is getting warm. That's why there is more to this game than just a normal Week 5 game against Virginia. And that's to Manny's doing. Like, we've lost games that we shouldn't. And, barely won some games that, that we could have lost. So 16-12 in 28 games as the head coach here is not good enough. And, again, you lose to Michigan State, who barely squeaked by a not good Nebraska team last week. Okay. But you lose, and you lose in the way that you lost. And then they come out afterwards and call you some punks and said we were going to drag them into the ocean and make them drown because they don't got the heart to run with the dogs like us. They don't have the personal fortitude of being Spartans. You have that. You have that. Again, Clemson lost last year. North Carolina lost last year. Alabama lost to open this season. A squeaker against Appalachian State. All of that informs this. So, yeah, there is pressure for him and the program moving forward. But I don't think it's the most pressured. And I think that depending on the outcome of every game throughout the rest of this season, you could ask this question every single week, Brandon, about is this the one that's the most pressure? Is this the one? Because, hey, Mark and I talked about this before the season. I think 8-4 is fireable, especially with the composition of those four of that. And, more than that is 100% fireable in year 3. Again, easy schedule, spotlight season. And, you think, hey, maybe Clemson's not going to be what Clemson's been. And Clemson is not who Clemson's been for a variety of reasons that I've been talking about on Twitter. They have not had an elevation of their quarterback play, which has been evolutionary, generational for the last 3 real full-time guys. But 4 if you go back to Taj Boyd. So you've had – sorry, Taj Boyd was part of that. But you know what I mean? Like, they haven't had this, increase. And you have an average quarterback, okay? You miss on a couple of evaluations and guys don't develop, and they're talking about, oh, Clemson doesn't have talent at wide receiver. Clemson got more talent at wide receiver you should stick at, but those guys are not all developing into being Sammy Watkins and then DeAndre Hopkins. And, they're not just churning all those guys into that all of a sudden. And you get a couple defections in the transfer portal. You miss on a couple recruits you think you're going to get. They go elsewhere. So you're still building with smaller classes, and you have a couple injuries thrown in there. Clemson is beatable. Clemson is very beatable this year. And I said that before the year, and people looked at me like, Cam, really? Who's right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a year that at a minimum you need to challenge to get to the ACC championship game to beat them. And they might not even get there because Wake Forest is undefeated and they're playing so much better than Clemson. And Clemson is not who they've been over the last decade. And this is the opportunity that Miami and everybody's been waiting for them not to be perfect on everything. Not with all their evaluations, development, no injury, 0 injuries they've had. In about a decade, they lost Mike Williams, the receiver, for the 1 year, but then you had 22 other dudes, so you didn't really. Now, okay, he was injured. I'm not going to make light of that. But you replace him with another blue chipper, and you don't really lose anything in the production. That's what I'm talking about. You don't lose anything. But that's what's over there on the other side of the conference. And if Miami is going to make a move, this is a year, again, that we've been pointing to for many moons, and you fall short of that. Any other game that you lose is going to continue towards Brandon's question about turning up the pressure and the volume on this program and Manny Diaz's job, plain like point blank period. So it would be in everybody's best interest if, you know, it's 7:43 p.m. as I'm saying this. So in the middle of the first quarter, I would love it to be Miami up 10-0 by this point, by 24 hours from now and moving forward. But, you know, we will see what happens.
The higher the status of your program, the less games on the schedule you would point to and say these are huge games, because obviously there are less teams on your schedule that are at your level.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I'll use this, for example, I could use a zillion games for an example. When Clemson lost to Pitt, the year that they won the national championship in 2016, was that a big game? Well, not leading into the Pitt game. Pitt was an average team. They were like a bowl team that went 7-5. And so that game wasn't, as a matchup, a big game. But once Pitt beat Clemson, then it became a big game because Clemson was not supposed to lose that game.
Well, yeah, but also it's always going to be a big game for the lesser team. You know, that's why we talk about, you know, Miami being everybody's Super Bowl or Clemson being everybody's Super Bowl, you know, because every time they step on the field against the brand, they're going to bring their best. So Pittsburgh, yeah, they've been playing up for a few years in these kind of games. So, yeah, it might not have had like the overall cachet, but over there, I know that they're going in, hey, we want to go ruin their season. We want to be that team. You know, and then obviously through the course of the game, you know, you might see that score alert, you know, get the little score bug on your phone, whichever app you use. I don't, you know, or, you know, whichever app or brand you follow on your apps. I don't care. It doesn't make me anything. They don't pay me anything. But you know, get that score notification. Third quarter, Pitt 17, Clemson 14. Hold on. Click. Let me go change over from my game to go watch it. And it gets bigger as it goes because, you know, David might knock off Goliath. But, you know, going into the game, the opposition obviously is going to make it a big game. But, yeah, if we're like evaluating it, again, before this year, we said Carolina, Alabama, you know, Florida State only because they're a rival. We're still going to blow their doors off. But, like, you wouldn't call any of those things a big game ahead of time. But it's just the kind of nature of football.
All right. Brace yourself, Cam. Falcon or X? Wasn't the last home game in the Orange Bowl a loss to Virginia?
Yes. The last game in the Orange Bowl was against the University of Virginia. It was supposed to be the great swan song for a wonderful venue. It went left early and got worse as it went on. I was with some of my friends. It was slightly after I had graduated, so we were sitting in the stands, and I wanted to leave at halftime because I didn't want to watch what was going on. And my friend Rich, shout out to Rich Gray, he said, paid for these tickets. We all went to Miami, and this is the last game here, and I drove. Tough. And I'm like, well, I'm not walking back, or this is pre-Uber, so I'm not cabbing it back to Fort Lauderdale. So we're going to sit here and we're going to watch it. And it was 48-0 at the end. And that is one of the worst losses in program history, along with the 58-0 to Clemson and a couple others thrown in there. But yeah, that is correct. Virginia 48, Miami nothing, and that was the last game ever played at the Orange Bowl. So, hey, I mean, I would like to continually get revenge against them for that. And if that revenge were to be continued for their third consecutive visit to Hard Rock Stadium and fourth out of 5 years, because they redid the schedule last year where we were supposed to go to Charlottesville, and they brought them down here instead. So, yes, this is the third year in a row that Virginia has come to Miami, in case you're wondering, in fourth out of 5. And I would like it if Miami were to win that game. Even if it's by a point, that would still just be another point towards evening the ratio from when they beat us 48-0 in the last game of the Orange Bowl, which I will never get over, per se. But if we keep paying that off one win at a time, then so be it.
Ashley, thanks for being here. We appreciate the Super Chat contribution as well. That Mario Cristobal video of him laying into the player at Oregon this past Saturday night, do you see Manny getting that level of respect from his athletes.
I see Manny get the same respect, but I don't think Manny would have the same outburst, which is talking to the style of coaching. I mean, if you saw it, didn't see it, a Oregon wide receiver had a big play right before the half, and then he got up and spun the ball in the defender's face, and then got a 15-yard penalty, which brought them out of field goal range late in the first half. And Mario Cristobal screamed at him on the sideline and made the clear point of this is not what you do, and this is definitely not how you do it, and this is definitely not when you do it, when we're in a 2-minute drill with only 22 seconds left trying to push for a field goal so we can, bookend a field goal here and then continue to go win this game. Like, that's not the time for this, and was very clear about it. And people were saying, oh, he went too far. He didn't go too far. He didn't hit the kid or anything. He was just very loud and direct with his coaching, and you saw the kid say, yes, sir, yes, sir, and then he walked off. And now, okay, the kid kept going down the bench to where the receivers sit. So it looked like Cristobal was following him. It was the other way. Cristobal was following the play, and the receiver was going to go sit where the receiver sit. They just happened to be walking parallel. But he didn't continue. He didn't throw things at the kid. He didn't pull a Bobby Knight. He didn't grab the face. He didn't do any of those things. It was just, look, sometimes it gets heated on the sideline. And so I'm not one who's going to be an apologist for that. I think that there was nothing wrong with that. And I think that the relationship you have with that kid extends more than what we saw on that one play. But I don't think that Manny Diaz would ever do something like that. His style of coaching is just not that. So the respect, to the heart of the question, if Manny Diaz were to scream at a player in the same way, would it go the same? I'm not sure. Just because he's a more mild-mannered person in general than Mario Cristobal. Also, Mario Cristobal, 2-time national championship offensive lineman here at the University of Miami, cuts a different figure. You know what I mean? Like, he's a bigger dude, especially when standing next to you see, like, the receiver is there. He has cleats on. He has his helmet on. And he's still sizably, like, smaller than Cristobal. You know what I mean? Where Manny Diaz is, like, a normal-sized human. So it's a different kind of thing. So I don't necessarily know that it would go the same, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. So it doesn't have to be the exact same to get the point across.
Okay, looking for more questions. We've got one coming in.
The 2017 offensive or defensive line was incredible. To the statement about the administration not caring about sports, I think that there's a lot that is left to be desired from the University of Miami administration at present. The university is no longer the highest rated academic institution, according to U.S. News and World Report. You're having other scandals outside of the football program and things like that. And also athletics not necessarily going great. It is not just an athletic thing, but, hey, we just hope that things go better.
Anthony, for some reason, believes that a blowout win is in order for Manny Diaz and Blake James to keep their jobs.
No, I don't think that this is I don't think that tomorrow's game is going to cost anyone their job or save anyone their job. I don't think that this is a situation where, like, it's going to be a definite outcome based upon the result tomorrow night. I think that tomorrow night's game against Virginia is going to be a chapter in the book of the tenure of Blake James, the athletic director, and Manny Diaz, the head coach. Blowout, close, win, loss. That could be a blowout win, blowout loss, close win, close loss. A blowout loss is a thing where I wouldn't necessarily. You could make a strong argument for firing Manny Diaz going into the bye week off of a blowout loss. Absent that, and I mean like a bad 48-0 in last game of the Orange Bowl loss. Absent something like that that's really, really, really memorable, I'm not sure that any action will be taken. Even like a Michigan State 38-17, like a 3-touchdown loss, I'm not sure that there's enough of that.
Kyle Branch is posting these statistics, so we'll have to take them as being fact. The first one's pretty easily verified. The second one, we would have to sift through NFL drafts, but where Georgia Tech has won the division 4 times versus Miami's 1 time, and in the same time period, Miami has had 83 players drafted in the NFL draft, and Georgia Tech 30.
Yeah, that's probably going all the way back to, when we came to the ACC. So the entire run. The administration doesn't defend that to the question, like, oh, how did they don't? That's not even a point of conversation. It's just, Miami needs to move forward, do better, be better, and things like that. But, the direct comparison to really any program, like that's not a thing that they need to or really should have to defend. Like we've gotten rid of coaches. You know what I mean? Like you keep losing games, Randy Shannon gone. You keep losing games, Al Golden gone. Mark Richt not willing to do the work that was needed to be done to progress the program. He retired. But I know he retired, but come on, bro. But that was to the point. I know, Blake James, you're going to come out in the public and you're going to say, well, I didn't give him an ultimatum, but
you don't think Mark Richt made his own decision?
I think that was things were said that needed to be done, and not wanting to do those things for the program, then he made the decision that he made. And I know that Blake James is going to say, well, I didn't give him an ultimatum or anything. But if you're saying, look, things need to change, and in these ways things need to change, you're not willing to do those things to change, well, then that's tacitly an ultimatum. So, yeah. Semantics be damned. It wasn't good enough, and then that coach left. So, it's not, to Kyle Branch's question, it's not like the administration at any level is just sitting here. You're not still watching Randy Shannon coached football all these years later and saying, well, we just kept losing to Georgia Tech, and it's okay because whatever, and we had more talent, and the ball bounces that way sometimes. Nobody's saying that. Actions have been made, coaches have been fired and things like that. So it's not a thing that they're going to defend, but it's a thing that does need to change for sure.
Falconer, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Miami should prepare and expect to blow out every team. That is when Miami will be back.
I'm with it.
Okay. All right. When Mark Richt got the job, who else was being considered?
Nobody really.
You remember?
That was, again, that's when I wrote the seminal piece about Let's Be Jerks, hashtag Let's Be Jerks, to say, Lane Kiffin. But nobody else really was. It happened so quickly, we didn't really even go down the road of a real comprehensive search. I know, we talked about it last week about not doing any kind of search when we hired Manny Diaz after Rick left, but it was really when it came out, because Georgia let it be known mid-season, I want to say, that he wasn't coming back. It wasn't before the season, but it was either early in the season or mid-season. There was a while that he was still coaching, and it was known that he was going to be leaving. When that happened, he was the presumptive favorite, and that was pretty much how it went.
Brandon, appreciate you. Thank you so much for the contribution. If King is out and or outplayed by TVD, is his starting role up for debate?
We're always here for debate and discussion, but it's more, you kind of need to see more or see the context. So last week, TVD went 10 for 11 for however many yards and 3 touchdowns, right? The only incompletion was a drop by D. Wiggins on a post route where the ball hit him in the hands. But all the yardage, and everybody's been saying, well, he threw for so many more yards than Jake Garcia. He threw an arrow route to Brashard Smith, who caught it a yard in the backfield and took at 76 yards for a touchdown. And then he threw a swing pass to Cam Harris, who caught it 3 yards in the backfield, and he went 83 yards for a touchdown. So you have, 108 or 160 something yards, and you've thrown the ball only about probably 10, 15 yards of air yardage. And that's just from the point of the throw to the point of the catch. And if you're talking about going up and down the field, you have -4 yards passing on those 2 plays because both of them were caught behind the line. Now, you ran past everybody against, Central Connecticut State, and that ends up running up the number of passing yards and things like that. But if you look at however many yards you passed for, you think 165, we'll call it, came on 2 plays, 2 throws that were behind the line of scrimmage. There's extra context to just numbers. So there will need to be extra context on the performance that will need to be taken into account and everything. The main thing is if King is healthy or not. And I tweeted it again in the Michigan State game. When he came back out of that locker room and he started warming up, I said, that shoulder's not right. He does not have any kind of zip on the ball. And Derek King is not known for having the strongest arm in the world, and that's okay. But you could really tell, he's just going to gut it out and try to be a gamer, but, he is not physically right now. And that's why he sat out last week and everything. And we'll see. But he was in that sling and everything. And, I mean, at last week's game, he was in the little immobility sling. So, we'll see if he plays and where things go with Tyler Van Dyke, because he would probably be the one who would start and play of the backups, either he or Jake Garcia, if King were out. The question was asked on the timeline of which young quarterback for the future you prefer. No knock against Tyler Van Dyke, who is big and strong and very talented. Myself personally, give me Jake Garcia for me. But again, not discounting the other player. My personal preference just so happens to be for quarterback number 13. But, let's see what happens tomorrow. Let's get through this game, hopefully with a win, and then we'll circle back on some other things.
We've got post-game here of Miami and Virginia right after the game. And also I'm going to fire up a little pregame action as well right here at the Voice of College Football. So stay tuned for that. At pregame and postgame here at the Voice of College Football. In the meantime, head on over to the State of the U. What do you got available over there?
As I click on the homepage, I just put up the how to watch, which I should have put up yesterday. But we have the ACC Power Rankings, 3 things to watch already up. Game day images from last week. Our photographer, Mike Shea, back on the sidelines. ACC Power Rankings, already got a film preview up. Got 2 video reviews from Central Connecticut State and a couple other things, including a Miami Hurricane recruit recap, which comes up on Mondays. So we have all those things and more, and we're going to be here all through the game tomorrow, live tweeting everything, have your game recap, 3 stars, good, bad, and ugly. Yes, even on a Thursday night, because your boy has Friday off, so I can stay at the stadium late to get that done for you. So it won't be, because I know after a Thursday night game a couple years ago, I didn't post the good, bad, or ugly until Friday night or Saturday morning. I know you guys were upset, but I'm dedicated to you guys. So we will have that there for you on State of the U with that and so much more. So please come on over and fan with us. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the State of the U. The website is stateoftheu.com. And my personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports, where I tweet about a bunch of stuff. But I'm not tweeting about what I'm watching on Netflix right now until I'm done, because y'all like to spoil things. And I'm a little tardy, not super tardy on what I'm watching, but I will watch it and then I will share my thoughts. So come interact with me.
Folks, consider doing 2 things. First of all, we've got a nice crowd in here, but we can do much better. So you enjoy the content, you enjoy the conversation here. Bring other people into the chat. Again, next Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And then if you're anything like me, what you might want to do is think about where you would place maybe 1 through 14 or just Miami in the ACC Power Rankings. Then build your list. Then go over to State of the U. Check out their power rankings and make the comparison and see where your rankings compare to the power rankings over on State of the U.
I mean, all great things, and there's even more content to interact with. We have a great community of commenters, and we, the writers, we usually do come into the comments to interact with all of our readers, because, you want to hear from the person who created the content. So like, hey, Cam wrote this thing, I'm going to put a comment. Okay, we can talk about it. John Michaels is good for that. Justin Tatato is good for that. Marsh is great when he does stuff with that as well. So, we're not just up on some hill. A lot of us are, fans like you guys. We just like to type a little bit more sometimes. So yeah, come on over, fan with us, interact with the content, do all of those things, like and subscribe, and make a SB Nation account and join State of the Youth, so you get inside all of our community things that we're doing and whatnot. And then be sure that you set your alarm clock so you come back and see me and Mark next week, Wednesday. We appreciate it.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Cam. As always, enjoy the game Thursday night.
Will do. See you.